we're live.
Okay. I would, and Kelly, is anyone in the waiting room or anything that we need to?
We don't have a waiting room this time.
Okay.
That's why we were trying to look for other means. So everybody is already participating. Everyone that you can see is a panelist and can participate and share their screen. Everyone else is in a separate room and they'll have to raise their hands and we'll take public comment that way. Other than that, if everybody just wants to make sure that the gallery view is on, otherwise you will only, I think, see the meeting room.
Kelly, before you start, the only thing I would do is maybe you could just pick one person that's in the other room, doesn't matter, any random person, and confirm that they can hear us, just so that we know that it's working on their end as well.
Alrighty. Hello?
They're muted.
Yeah, they are muted.
There they go.
This is Lynn Elliott on the just the telephone line. I don't have a computer, and I can hear all of you, and hello to everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lynn.
Good evening, Lynn.
Sure. Hi.
Okay, with that, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, with that, I will then call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board for Thursday, April 29, 2021. Present at the meeting are Ed McGargy, a voting member, Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Good evening.
Jesse Poynton, a voting member.
Good evening.
Our solicitor, Bill Malone, and our court stenographer, Arlene LaRosa, and our distinguished codes officer, Kelly Kirk. My name is Bill Rhodes. I'm a voting member. I'm presiding here in the absence of our chairman, Bob Kane, who has a work meeting right now and will be joining us later. But in the interest of time and for all of the members of the public participating, we wanted to go ahead and start as soon as we could. Thank you for your patience while we were trying to work through a new software for the virtual meeting. Many of you were getting to witness that process. So before we start the meeting, or Jessica, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jess. So we only have one case on the agenda for tonight. It's case Z21-12, Dana B. Hall, owner of 701 Haverford Road in Haverford, Pennsylvania, DC folio number 220500350000, who seeks a variance from the provisions of section 182-802 D1 to allow an existing non-conforming retail use to be changed to a restaurant use, which is not permitted in the R6 zoning district, and a variance from the provisions of section 182-707.B to allow fewer than the required 10 off-street parking spaces. The property is zoned R6 and is in the 5th Ward. Ms. Hall, I see you in the virtual room, so welcome. Will you be presenting your case tonight?
Yes, I will be.
Okay, so we have to swear you in. Arlene, would you swear in Ms. Hall?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you?
I do.
Thank you, Arlene. Well, welcome,
And
Ms.
Bill,
Hall.
before we commence, Ms. Hall,
Yes.
as you heard, Mr. Kane is not present, and he will hopefully be here to participate in the meeting this evening. But presently, you are dealing with a 4-member board, which leaves you with a few options. What you need to know is that if Mr. Kane is not present and the matter goes to decision with a 4-member board, a 2-2 tie would result in a denial of your application. That's why zoning boards typically have odd number boards. You can elect to proceed with the anticipation that he's not here with a 4-member board and accept that as the way to go. You could agree to allow him, if he does not make it here in time, to read the transcript and participate in the decision, or you could request a continuance to a future hearing date. So those are really your 3 options.
Thank you.
I would add that I think Mr. Kane is expected relatively shortly, so.
Yes, I'm confident that you all are probably on a similar page and that I can't, well, if I'm fine with proceeding.
With the full 5-member board?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So in the event, I just want to make it clear for the record, I'm just trying to cover all bases. In the event that Mr. Kane does not make it in time, you would want him to read the transcript
Yes,
and
please.
participate in the vote. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay, so Ms. Hall, tell us a little bit about your project, what you're hoping to do, and why you need some variances.
Bill, I'm going to interrupt again just for a quick second. We do have an exhibit list, and just in the interest of making sure it's clear, and I know we have a number of participants, what we've been doing during the Zoom is I've been going through the exhibit list, identifying it, confirming with the applicant that the exhibits are as stated.
Okay,
So what we have is the exhibit A1 is the variance application and acknowledgement. A2 is the deed, and I will advise the board as well as the public that I reviewed the deed. The deed does establish standing, so we don't have to go through the details of that. Ms. Hall does have standing to proceed with the application. A3 is a proposed floor plan dated March 11, 2021. Exhibit A4 is a proposed floor plan with customer service area, also dated March 11, 2021. A5 is a site plan with a proposed parking configuration dated today, April 29, 2021. Exhibit A6 are sections of a site plan dated January 22, 2013. And Exhibit A7 is a full site plan dated January 22, 2013. Ms. Hall, did I correctly identify those exhibits as the exhibits that you intend to ask be entered into evidence today?
Yes, you did indeed. Thank you.
Then we also have, just for the record, we have email comments, 7 of them, 1 in favor, 6 opposed. Number 1, the one in favor is from Tom East, located at 734 Millbrook Lane, Millbrook. Number 2, opposed, Shannon Bierman, Bearman, 626 Haydock, Haydock Lane. 3, opposed, Clarissa, with 2 R's and 2 S's, Dillon, Dillon, 768 Buck Lane, again opposed. 4, Nadia, Nadia, and Josh Dupuis, Dupuis, 762 Buck Lane, opposed. Next, Marilla, Marilla, Marion, Marien. I don't have the street number, but located on Buck Lane, also opposed. Next, Chris and Molly, Molly, Morse, Morse, 710 Buck Lane, opposed. And finally, Doreen, Doreen, Sar, Saar, 748 Rugby Road, also in opposition. So those are all of the exhibits that Kelly has kindly gotten to everyone in advance of the hearing.
okay. And so, Ms. Hall, you would like to have your exhibits A1 through A7 admitted to the record so it'll be part of the transcript?
Yes, please.
Okay. And, as you're going through your description, if you want to refer to one of those, to make it easier for people to follow. Kelly, you can bring that up on the screen and show for everyone, right? Okay. All right. So with that, Ms. Hall, do you want to go ahead and tell us what you're trying to do?
Sure. And may I just stipulate for the record that I don't know any of the people who sent emails and have not had discussions with them. So I hope that I could engage with that. I mean, I would be happy to engage with anyone who is opposed, but I have not had that experience so far. So very few people are aware of this proposal other than the short description that was provided for this meeting. So thank you. Obviously, I appreciate the willingness of the staff over the years to help me through some complexities that I did not anticipate with this property. And I apologize in advance. I've sort of relearned that Donald Rumsfeld aphorism about you don't know what you don't know. I apologize in advance if this is an incomplete presentation. It's not out of any lack of respect for the process or trying to cut corners. I just entered into this thinking it was a very simple, elegant solution to a problem. And I discovered that sort of like peeling back an onion, that every little change revealed a new wrinkle. So I would like to be productive and useful, but as I say, I apologize if there's anything, and specifically the parking situation. I don't believe that I need a variance for parking. So I'm sorry that that was in there, but I have just recently figured out the configuration will support the regulations. So I'm specifically here tonight as a sort of an advocate for Mr. Vincent Viola, the former executive chef of Yang Ming and various venerable local country clubs prior to his almost 30 years at Yang Ming. And his vision of like a family operated business, preparing a simple menu of meals, his favorite foods for our neighbors and making it comfortably accessible at the former Haverford market space. I am specifically not here seeking a variance for the property to be marketed to the public as a restaurant. If this doesn't suit or work out or meet with your approval, it is not my intention, nor was it my plan to convert this property to a restaurant. I understand that the process for the zoning commission is the same, but this position, I think, gives some context to some of the lack, perhaps, of professionalism of my application. Unfortunately, despite almost 8 years of discussions and matchmaking by the extraordinary, inimitable Andy Lewis, I don't have a practical vision for this property. And I have explicitly discovered over the years that it's not a competitive option for retail, which obviously is the current zoning classification, given a lot of empty storefronts on Lancaster. So I was, frankly, I've just been in a wait and see mode, hoping that we'd have a resurgence of property values and that I could perhaps work with a developer. I'm open to, and have been open to over the last 8 years, a number of different options. I'm really very flexible on this, except I'm not willing to take a huge loss on the property, which has been the only things that have been introduced to me. Mr. Viola knocked on my door in December and said he'd driven by that property for years. He's a Haverford Township resident. He was recently retired and it was making him crazy. And he's always wanted to have a little catering and takeout business, maybe with a small seated cafe area. And he wanted, his son was ready to join him in this enterprise. And he wondered if I would be open to that. And I'm aware that the neighborhood has been frustrated by that building being empty and underutilized. And I thought this might be a very a nice option. So Mr. Viola, I believe he can speak if we would like to speak to him. He's present tonight. He has been extraordinarily flexible and helpful, and he's really committed to making this property work. But I think more so he's committed to starting this little business, and I think would have to move on if we can't come to some agreement. He would be, the specific things that make it different from, well, aside from the business plan, all he needs to do to change the physical plant is, or the structure, is to have a fan. And there wouldn't be like smelly hot foods. So that's not a consideration. He's drawn his designer has drawn a refitting of the interior space that calls for about 601 feet. And Kelly, if you would like to show that page, I don't know if that makes sense, but it is anticipated that he would use 601 square or feet of inside space. And my understanding is that you need 1 parking spot for each 100 feet. So we would need 6 parking spots under the current regulations. So it's not, all I want to explicitly say is it's not a full-on restaurant, lots of cars sitting around for a couple of hours and smelly smells coming out of a big giant fan, and lots of employees who need to park and are taking breaks and, you know, loitering. So I think that's all I have to say. I hope that explains it. I don't think he'd have any non-family employees. He'd be open 5, maybe 6 days a week, lunch and dinner, no alcohol, and he expects that there'll be most of the business will be takeout, so just be in and out.
Okay, so Ms. Hall, we typically would allow the board to ask you questions, and we can do that, but I guess you were, I think, suggesting that Mr. Viola might testify himself. Is that the plan? Do you want us to ask you questions first and then go to Mr. Viola?
I think that would be right. Mr. Viola we don't have any prepared comments for him, but he wanted to be available to answer any questions about his intentions or his commitment, long-term commitment to the project. And I've been specifically very pleased with his financial commitment, the financial commitment he's willing to make to enhancing the property.
Okay.
So I thought he would be better to speak to those specific things. But please go ahead and ask me questions.
Okay. Let's see. Ed, do you want to go first?
Sure, Bill.
Okay.
The first question I have is we don't have any information on when you purchased the property and what the existing use was. It does seem it was non-conforming at one time, but how long has the property been vacant?
The property has been vacant since I bought it in March of 2013. And I purchased it from the former proprietor of the Haverford Market. He had it open, for those of you who were patronized it was open when he felt like working. So it was very casual. And I had hoped to just upgrade the facility a little bit but mostly continue his low-key, retail lunch and coffee, breakfast business. I ran into some unforeseen, I didn't do proper due diligence on the property when I bought it. And there were just a series of hurdles with getting a new business started, and then some economic decisions or challenges that came into play that I had not anticipated. So I gave up on and my contractor ran off with most of the money that I had given him. So just a bunch of really unfortunate consequences led me to give up on the property, maybe in October or November of 2013, and fully expecting that I would have lots of people who wanted to rent it, and that I could find a suitable renter if I didn't want to run the business. I was going to continue to run the Haverford Market. And unfortunately, as I said, over the years, through complaints from the neighbors of it being empty, I've had a lot of, Andy was introducing me to people who had thought they had good ideas for things. And once we'd get a little bit down a path, we'd realize that that wasn't possible. For instance, there was a developer who wanted to put condos up there, and he thought he could put 20 in for some ungodly reason. And I apologize. And, you know, when it became clear it was more like 7, he walked away from it. Lots of people who want to run like a pizza shop or something, or or some food that doesn't require a fan. I think those were the only things.
But I don't know who I can answer this question of, but the question is, did you abandon the non-conforming use by not having it occupied for 6 years? I mean, since 2012.
Yeah, I can't answer that question.
Is it-
I know that Bill, the former owner, had considered getting it rezoned as commercial. It's currently 5 lots that I purchased. It's the Haverford Market, the parking lot. So I guess it's 4 lots. The Haverford Market, the parking lot, and the 2 contiguous homes, one on Haverford and one on Buck. And I've had a lot of trouble with the homes. The one on Haverford is currently not occupiable. It needs to be condemned. It needs to come down. And the one on Buck is close to that. I can't.
Okay, so the other question would lead into that then, is do we have a plot plan that shows all these other lots divide and existing residential properties that would have to be demolished to do
No,
that?
nothing. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to be misleading. I meant that I own the 4 pieces, the 4 property pieces, but only the market's at 701 and the parking lot is 705, and nothing would change with that.
Ed, if you look, it wasn't in our packets, but the exhibit A6, Kelly, I don't know if you can scroll down to that, shows site plans for the existing 4 lots and the proposed reverse subdivision plan, and then the separation into 2, I guess, if that's the proper way to say it.
That was from the previous owner. I just found that in the files, and Kelly thought that was useful for looking at the dimensions of the property. But it would just be the 2 that you see. 701, yep, is right there on the corner, and 705 is right next to it. And then 711 is the house. Doesn't need to come down for this proposal. It is not fixable, and it's not satisfactory. It would never get passed for renting, is what I meant.
Okay. And so
the 4 pieces of property together is what developers were interested in. And so I was, by mentioning that, I apologize if that was confusing. I was simply saying that I've explored a lot of different options for this, in addition to renting the market.
So what you're looking for now, though, is not any kind of consolidation of these separate parcels? Okay.
No, I have given up on that. And as I said, anticipated it being empty. And then Mr. Viola approached me with this lovely little gift of an option, which I think would be incredible. Just personally, I would love to be the neighbor of this takeout place. Like, there just isn't a lot of great food around here. No disrespect to the current proprietors, but I can't walk to a lot of places where I can get a nice meal.
Okay.
I'm on Walnut Lane, by the way. I'm a neighbor of the property.
Okay, so maybe you could go through and explain where the market is. So you own a residential property on Haverford Road and on Buck Lane. So how is there any other residential properties that adjoin this property?
No.
then is there any other residential properties that adjoin the properties that you own on this block?
Yes, there is one at maybe it's 713 or 715 Haverford. And I noticed I was trying to find out who owned it. And I noticed that it's a rental property. So that's all I know about it.
Okay, and across Buck Lane, what is across Buck Lane?
There is residential. That house is for sale, I think. So I was less inclined to worry about. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I have no other questions right now, Bill.
And just to one other thing that I know there was a lot of interest, or I should say anecdotally, I heard there was a lot of interest among the neighbors in making that residential. And there was a lot of pushback from prospective developers about being across from the gas station. It's just not, it's a lovely piece of property. It really is an extraordinary and such good access and that, but it's a busy intersection and the gas station was aesthetically challenging. Although very popular, I understand that's a very popular gas station. So good for retail.
Okay, Jessica, do you want to ask Ms. Hall questions?
Yes. So you indicate on your application that there are 2 apartments as part of this building. I just wanted to confirm that those are in the same building as the market and are not the separate houses.
Yes, there are 2 small apartments in the building, and I learned that they require 2 parking spots. So that's included. We have today I was able to submit a plan for parking that satisfies all the regulations and includes 13 spots. So 4 for the 2 apartments, even though they only have 1 car all between them. And then more than 6, obviously, for the for Mr. Viola's business.
And then are the apartments currently being rented right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I have struggled in the past with renting, and one of them is currently month to month, and no one stays very long. So I think that supports the struggle with that being a residential corner, the challenge with it being residential. That's the
parking plan.
Again, I apologize for the confusion about, I think it might have been alarming to the neighbors that I was asking for a variance on parking. And that was just my error. I didn't have the proper, I didn't understand the size of the parking spaces.
So is this parking lot one way in, one way out?
It could be, it isn't currently, but you notice that there are 2 entrances. So there's an entrance on Buck and an entrance on Haverford. And I think that's very appealing to Mr. Viola. It has people moving through rather than pulling in, parking and pulling out the same way.
I only ask because this dimension seems short if it was 2-way. I don't know if you know what that dimension is.
No, that makes sense. I guess it would have to be 1 way.
And would you have, if we were going to put a condition on the parking, that it would be a 1-way parking lot?
Sure, absolutely.
Would you accept, I guess, either condition that it was either exiting onto the residential street or exiting right out to Haverford? Do you have an issue with that?
I can't imagine. I will let Mr. Viola weigh in if he feels strongly, but in our conversations, he was just thrilled that there was a way in and a separate way out.
Okay. And this space here on the plan, is that just kind of back of house storage? Is this actually occupiable space?
Just let me double check on my my copy because it's hard to see on the screen. That is like a step up to the back door and a space for garbage cans. And, oh no, that's the stairs and the ramp. Yeah, that must be back of house.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This you see it's noted as steps and ramp where I was thinking. The part that says 6.8, that's where we usually put the garbage.
Okay. And then this might be a question for Mr. Viola. You mentioned that you'd be doing lunch and dinner. Do you have particular hours in mind for that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, but Mr. Viola, before you, we can go ahead and swear you in now, but you'd have to be sworn in.
Okay.
So,
Can I just take that and then we can
sure.
he has been extremely flexible. I want him to say exactly the hours he would like, but I know that if this is a big issue, I think Mr. Viola would be flexible on hours. But he does not intend to run it into the late evenings and early morning.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it's sooner or later we're going to have to swear in Mr. Viola because some of the questions will become operational. So why don't we do that now? Arlene, when you get a moment.
Raise your right hand.
Mr. Viola, can you turn your video on?
Now,
Sure.
can you see me? Can you see it? Can you see me now?
Oh, no, not yet.
I can't see my video there.
I can't figure it out. I don't know.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Viola, so the testimony is that you would be the proprietor from the chefs of this establishment. Jessica, did you want to, or Jessica has asked a question about operational arrangements, including hours to begin with.
My hours would like to start 11:30 during the day and be done by 9 o'clock in the evening. I'm hoping to get a 6-day operation with either Sunday or Monday closed.
And then the 9 p.m. in the evening, is that when you close to customers or when you expect to be kind of out of the building and packed up and locked up?
I would expect to be out of the building by 9:15.
And then who do you anticipate working in the restaurant catering establishment?
I'm going to have to hire one full-time employee and one part-time employee. That's where I'm going right now. My son wants to be involved, and we have a few neighbors who wouldn't mind working part-time. I would also like to say we've been Haverford residents since 1979. So we've been living in the area. Our kids have gone to the school, have attended the school district in the area also. I just want to let you know I'm not somebody from outside the area who's going to fly by night. I live in right up from Chestnut Wall, and we've been here for 42 years. If that makes a difference.
Great. How many maximum employees do you think you would have at one time working simultaneously at like your busiest?
No more than 3.
Okay.
It'll be a smaller menu. Our biggest concern, it will be the exhaust system to get in there. They don't have one right now, but I've had a few people look at it and they said it's not a problem putting it in.
Okay. And
when I meant the biggest problem, I meant cost-wise, not
right.
Not putting it in.
Let me just pull up the exhibit. So on.
And just to, if I can explain what I want to do, my vision, I want something quaint and small like it is now. Nothing huge, nothing crazy. I want something that's going to appeal to the people. I want to do something with the deck and maybe extend that a little bit where people can sit outside. But I guess that all depends on how we're going to go through tonight. But it's like I was explaining to Dana earlier, Haverford Road is pretty generic. There's nothing that really stands out. And I think this would do that. We have come up with a few names I think are kind of cool. The Blue Porch Cafe or the Front Porch Cafe or things like that. The menu is going to be Italian with some burgers and maybe some Asian. I hope to get a counter in there that seats about 6 and maybe a few tables back in the corner.
Okay, so if you exhibit A3 is the plan that you had drawn up by CET designer.
That was my wife did this. CET
okay.
is an app online that she designed it through.
So this shows 15 seats. Do you anticipate that the capacity for patrons will be approximately 15 or less?
That's what I'm thinking, yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Jesse, you want to go next?
Sure. Actually, if we could bring up the parking exhibit, that showed the entire building, that's A5. I wanted to expand on, I think, a question Jessica was asking that I wasn't clear on until I saw this. So where it says 42 foot 5 inches, that area, would that be the kitchen, Mr. Viola?
You're inside the building, yes.
Okay.
42.5 is right here.
Because where I'm getting at is the first plans that we had access to, which I believe it became Exhibit A3, only showed what I believe is the front of house, the patron area, and then until we saw A5 tonight, I didn't know where the cooking facility was. So it seems to me, if I'm guessing right, that is the kitchen area where it says the 42.5.
The kitchen area, if you see the countertop there with 4 seats at it,
yes,
the kitchen area will be right behind that. We would be cooking and serving from that area. The area behind that is storage, the 42.5.
I see.
There's
Okay,
2
so it's
small
kind of
storage rooms back there.
I see. So it's a kind of an open kitchen concept. You'd be cooking out and behind, I guess, with some equipment there, and then there would be patrons at a bar.
Yes, sir, a countertop.
Okay.
And this is, we're not going for alcohol, or this will not be any alcohol served on premise.
Understood. And then I see a walk-in box, which I believe that's a walk-in refrigerator.
Correct. That is huge and old, so that will be taken out.
Okay. Where would you anticipate deliveries being received?
There is an area right next to the back door that they could back into. Most of my deliveries will be smaller items. Most of my produce and food items will be picked up by myself, either at Costco or down at Restaurant Depot in North Philly.
And what would be the extent of any trash facilities, dumpsters, recycling, et cetera?
That's something I will check into. I'm going to have to buy the smallest dumpster available. I will make sure there's a spot on the property for that's enclosed. That won't be in the sight lines of any of the neighbors.
And there was a dumpster there for many years, quite large actually. That all the neighbors used, or not neighbors, but that other people used.
And I think my next question would be for Ms. Hall. There's I believe what I guess would be called like an Airstream trailer that's been on the property for as long as anybody I can remember. Would that be vacating for this new use?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's the second thing I'm going to do when I get 5 minutes of free time. So that's mine. That's my Airstream.
That's yours. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a 1963. It's almost, let's say it's going backwards. Maybe it's at 1968 right now.
And could you describe any potential signage for this new proposed use?
I will. There's one there on the front lawn right now that says Haverford Market. I want something that's maybe a little bit taller, but not much. And they also have one at the entrance from Buck Lane into the back area. There's a smaller one there also. I don't think I'll use one there. I'll just have the one in the front.
And you would be willing to comply with all applicable sign codes and not ask for a variance for any signage?
No, I will not.
Will not need a variance.
Will not ask for a variance, yes.
Okay. Just want to be clear. I think, let's see. I don't have any other questions that I can think of, but I would, I may think of some others later, Bill. Thanks.
Okay.
And I'm
no problem.
especially I think hearing from the neighbors, I think will also open up some further line of questioning. So
Yeah.
stop.
All right.
Thank you.
So Ms. All, and Mr. Viola, thanks. Just a couple questions that I wanted. Mr. Viola, do you anticipate that this is waitered table service, or is this patrons would come in and order at the counter and then get their food and go just sit down at the table, or are you expecting table service?
The people at the counter obviously will be served at the counter by myself or one of the other cooks. If there's might be, like I said, it may be 2 or 3 tables in the back. We could have our part-time salad maker could also serve those tables. So either way, I don't think would be a problem, but I will go with any recommendations that the township has.
Okay. I'm not sure that I had a recommendation. I was just wondering. Okay, and then
my first thought is that we would serve them at the table.
okay, so on this plan that Kelly is on page A5, it looks like the counter at which patrons can sit where you're preparing food. It looks there's 4 seats present, although to be honest, it looks like there's some gaps. Is there a reason that you're proposing that's as only 4, and is there it presumably could seat more?
I think we were doing that with COVID in mind, but I think the counter will sit 6 non-COVID. If you look right next to the counter to your left-hand side, that's will be a takeout counter there.
Mm-hmm.
And next to that space will be the bathroom. Right now, the bathroom is in the back. I don't want people going into the back, and plus it's not handicap accessible. The one I put in the front will be handicapped accessible, and it'll be right in the corner.
Okay, as depicted on this exhibit.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And
you
on
mentioned,
the other, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On the other side, on the
Yeah,
other
go ahead.
side of the counter to the right, there is another opening. That's where the cooks or the staff to come out into the dining room as needed. Right to the right of that, that's where the walk-in box is. That will be coming out, and the area behind that will be turned into a small prep area.
okay, so you're anticipating my next question. You had mentioned that the walk-in unit would be removed, or that wouldn't be replaced with another one. That would that become space for customers to be in? Or
If you see in front of the walk-in box right now, there's one small table there with 2 people, 2
Yep.
chairs. That space where the walk-in box will not be for customers. That will be for prep and refrigeration only.
okay. And then you mentioned that you would need to install an exhaust fan. Where would that exhaust out of the building?
I had a construction person come over last week, and he said we could run it out either side, whether it runs out towards Buck Lane or it runs out into the parking lot. He didn't seem to think either way was worse or better. He just said they were my options.
Do you have a sense of, based on your professional experience, whether it would be better that you would prefer to go one way or the other?
Probably the parking lot.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I own the building that is adjacent to the parking lot. So
Right.
We don't have a neighbor right there to worry about.
Okay. And then, Mr. Vale, for a restaurant of this scale size, well, let me first ask a question about takeout. So if we're showing that we've got seating here for 15 depicted, possibly 17 if 2 more seats were there, how many takeout visits might you expect in, in an hour? I don't know.
It's hard to guess, but in something that small, I'm guessing maybe 8 to 10 an hour.
Okay.
And takeout, as you know, the food will be ready. They'll come in, they'll pick it up. We'll get them on their way.
Right. And even though this is a drive-through parking lot, at this point, you're not expecting to do a drive-through window service.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
We wanted to be a little bit, like I said, more quaint. I want people to drive by and look at it. I don't want to call it a Cheers, but I want people in the area to be able to walk there and feel they're getting good quality food and everything is safe.
Okay. And how long do you think the average takeout visitor is in the establishment? They'll come in and park, and are they there for 5 minutes? Is 10 minutes?
I can't think any less than 5 and no more than 10.
Okay.
And there's other days, as soon as they walk in, it could be ready and they can walk out within 2 minutes.
Right. Okay. All right. And you can probably anticipate, I'm trying to understand and elicit information to help us and the others who are attending tonight to understand, how many people might be there. I will point out that the parking regulations here are not derived really by volume of foot traffic. It's really just a square footage analysis, but it still helps to understand how the operational impacts of this establishment might be on the neighborhood. I wanted to, and this may be more for Ms. Hall, I just wanted to make sure on this same page, Exhibit A5, on the very top of the screen, there is an angled line that I'm going to guess is an effort to depict the driveway, the existing driveway. Is that right? Okay.
If I could answer that.
Sure, either one.
When we measured today, we did measure that when we pull into the driveway off Buck Lane, it starts out a little narrower and widens as it gets to the larger area of the parking lot.
Okay.
And just to be clear for those at home, I own that property too, so I could easily extend that if you made that recommendation, if the zoning board wanted.
Yeah, no, I don't think I was heading towards a suggestion again. I was just trying to understand the plot plan that's being submitted as evidence so we can understand how to read it.
Sure.
There is on that same exhibit, there's an 18-foot long rectangle that I believe is, essentially adjacent to the entrance off Buck Lane. Yeah, Kelly, if you could go down 2 more pages.
That's this one here. Yeah.
Yeah, so up in the upper right corner, there's an 18-foot long rectangular, but is that supposed to denote a parking spot that's not angled like the ones next to it?
It is. That will be a parking spot there. The next 3 will be angled. And then there's a 20-foot gap between the third angled parking lot and the parking lot in the corner, or the parking spot in the corner there.
Okay. And typically, Mr. Viola, would you have this proposed dumpster adjacent to the building, or perhaps back in the corner of the parking lot? Where do you think you would have it? And I presume it has to be in a position where a truck could access it.
Correct. If you walk out the back door, you'll see steps there. Right to the left-hand side of the steps, you'll see an area at 6'8". Mm-hmm. A small dumpster will fit right there, and that would give the truck access to dump. Mm-hmm. He could pull right in at that area.
That's where it was in the past as well.
Okay, and that would be enclosed but open air at the top or enclosed with a roof?
I will enclose top and bottom. And I will open up, I will have a gate there when the guy comes in to dump, he will have to open up the gate and put the gate back when he is finished.
Okay, so the dumpster would be presumably an enclosed dumpster itself inside essentially a shed type space with a roof and openable walls. Is that right?
You know, I probably misspoke. The dumpster itself will have covers,
Okay,
but it will be enclosed.
okay. All right. So it may not have a roof over the dumpster, but the dumpster itself will be sealed on the top.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, I don't know that we saw a real calculation. I see on A4 that there is a sticky note on the document that aggregates to what I think is 601 square feet. So can you walk us through which each of these three dimensions where in this jigsaw puzzle piece of customer space you derive these three presumably square pieces?
Sure.
Can I just say one thing? Kelly very helpfully said anywhere a customer could step. So that was the
Right.
rule I gave to Vince.
Right.
So as you go through the porch into the front door, you're talking that area there. From the left-hand side, you'll see a little bench area to the left, and that
Yeah.
area goes all the way up to the wall, to the right.
Yeah, including the bathroom and the takeout space?
No, that's just that's all that open space you see there, and the space with the three tables back in the
Mhm.
right-hand corner. All that
Mhm.
space area there comes to 601 square feet. I just measure
Okay.
different areas and put them up there.
Okay.
You were asking if the 23 by 17 Vince represents
Yeah.
section.
Yeah, that's the section that probably goes, and we did that a while ago, but as soon as you walk in the door, that bench is on your left-hand side.
That's
That's
right.
probably the amount of footage from the bench all the way to the wall.
That is.
Okay, so what appears as the bench to the side of the fireplace is that's literally like a place where someone could sit and wait for their takeout food to be ready?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's exactly what it is. That's a bench area.
Okay, so from that back wall there, all the way across the customer space, and then is a dimension, right, a length, but I wasn't
Right.
sure, the 23 by 17, is that everything from the closet over to the right side of the corner counter?
No, if you're looking in front of the walk-in box and there's that table there, that
Yeah.
area there goes back to the front wall also.
Okay,
So all that area there encompasses those areas from the left-hand side where the benches are to the side wall on Buck, from the front wall on Haverford back to the walk-in box, and once again from the front wall next to the porch back to the seating area next to Buck Lane also.
okay. And you had mentioned that at some point you might like to think about, some seating outside, maybe on the porch. Kelly, if you could go down or up either way, A5 or A3. A3. Are we talking here in the lower left corner where people would walk in from the parking lot?
Yeah, if you see where the porch is,
Okay,
I would want to know if it's possible to extend the porch. If we could just have a few tables outside during summer. People love sitting outside, no matter where you're at, whether in Center City or Manayunk. I'm sure they would love to sit outside on Haverford Road also.
Yeah,
But
so,
that's not something that's going to stop me from going after the business. If
yeah,
it's
I
something
think,
if something I can't do, it's not going to deter me.
okay. Kelly, I presume that there's area bulk requirements relating to front yard setbacks for commercial spaces that could present an issue or a need for a separate variance, which we could not grant in this because there was no public notice for that.
Absolutely
fine.
correct. The current building, assuming these measurements are correct, looks like it's about, what is that, 16 feet
16 feet, correct.
from the front yard setback. And so it currently encroaches. To go any further with that porch, just setback wise, you would need an area in bulk or a dimensional variance for the porch.
Okay.
And possibly, other things, depending on, building coverage, whatnot. It is R6, so that does give you a lot more coverage than other districts, but the dimensional variance for the front yard is just jumping out at me right away.
Okay, so it's probably not doable.
Without another variance, no.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay, look, I may well, like Jesse said, I'm sure all of the members may have some additional questions that may arise, but why don't we,
Actually, Bill, I do have one more question.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
And I'll go after Jess.
You mentioned that you're not selling alcohol. I was just wondering if you intend to do this as a BYOB.
No.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yes.
And Mr. Rhodes, if this is appropriate, while Mr. Viola was providing testimony in regards to the sizes, I kind of took it upon myself to check using my own software, and I'm satisfied with the 601 as being an accurate number in my professional opinion.
I'm sorry, inaccurate or accurate?
Accurate.
Oh, accurate.
I came
Okay,
up with the same figure within a foot or so. So I'm satisfied with the 601.
And to just to be clear, again, for people following along at home, there are 3 extra parking spots relative to the square footage requirement. So if we got it wrong, we have some leeway.
Right, so and thank you, Ms. Hall. Why don't I, just for the benefit, although a variance was requested for parking at the time of the notice went out, it was because of some uncertainty, I guess, as to the existing paved area and the available parking that would be on it. Is that right? And that you submitted this evening before the meeting, this picture, which is depicted in A5, which, maybe Kelly can bring up just to let everyone who's participating here see. But by this analysis, with 9-foot wide parking spaces that you are showing coming in immediately off Buck, a 1 parallel spot, 3 angled spots, and then as you go around the corner, there would be let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I guess 8.
9,
9 plus the handicap.
including the handicap.
Right, including, so 8 regular spaces and 1 handicap space, giving a total of 13 spaces. Now, Kelly can correct me, but the residential units, each of the apartments is required to have 2 parking spaces, which would require 4, leaving 9 available for the square footage, which the code would require 1 for every 100 square feet. So that would be 6 or 7, depending on where the actual calculation comes out on that extra foot. But at this point, is the applicant then no longer requesting a variance with respect to parking? Is that fair?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, I am no longer requesting a variance. I think you had to I had to withdraw it by a certain time and I missed that deadline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill, we can actually just mark that as denied as moot.
Okay. And yeah, because they don't need a variance, right? So that's the idea. Okay. And Mr. Viola, let me just ask go ahead.
I just wanted to say that there was a very narrow margin of time before your last meeting was going to be the 3rd week in April, and it had to be 30 days beforehand. So I was just operating very quickly, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. And so, Mr. Viola, let me just say we have 9 parking spaces here. It sounds like the maximum number of employees that you're thinking, or you've testified, I guess, is up to 3, which would leave roughly 6 available spots. Do you believe that for 15 people seated and a walk-in every few minutes or so in any given hour, that you would need more? And if you did, where do you think they would park?
I don't, and maybe Dana can back me up on this. On her property next door on Haverford Road, they have off-street parking that goes to the back. The employees could park there, and I can always work something out with the gas station across the street if he wants to let one of my employees park there for dinner or lunch. But the employees will not be parking in the parking lot. We will try to park in Dana's other property on Haverford Road.
All right. And Ms. Hall, would you be, if we wanted to require it as a condition that you lease some employee parking spaces on the adjacent property, would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. All right. Ed or Jesse or Jessica, anything else before we turn it over to public comment?
It would be nice, and I don't know how we're going to do it, if we can go off into executive session so I could ask a question of the solicitor.
I might be able to answer the question just by anticipation, Ed, and then if not, we can go off. There would have to be a formal written lease submitted, so we would not be able to close tonight. And that lease would have to have, an extended period of time in order to provide that protection. Because if you just signed a lease for a year or 5 years, that does not then satisfy the code, because you don't know what's going to happen with the code going down the road in terms of that. So you would actually probably need, and you can't do a lease into perpetuity. The longest you can do is a 99-year lease, but you would need to have a lease for parking for an extended period of time. And if that's not your question,
well, the other question I can pose it to you and see if you need to go in executive session. The issue is that it's not conforming, has been discontinued for more than 6 months. I don't even know that we have the proper thing on the agenda here for the variance requested for. And I don't know if Kelly could put that on the record for us, whether I'm correct or not.
I can actually probably, if Bill's okay with that. A use has to be intentionally abandoned.
sure, go ahead.
And I know that Ms. Hall has been working to find an occupant since she bought this building, and hasn't intentionally abandoned the use by converting it to something else, or losing that use by making it conforming in any way. So that is generally our standard for an abandonment of a nonconformity.
Doesn't it also require that you have something written?
No, it does not. As far as I know. I'm sorry, Bill, if you want to jump in there. That's generally.
Right. In terms of abandonment, you can actively abandon and you can passively abandon. But if you are taking overt efforts in order to continue the nonconformity, then that's sufficient. It does not have to be in writing. But if for example, you know, I know Kelly has indicated that there's been work with the applicant for a period of time on the property, that's not considered abandonment, simply because you can't find a proper tenant for it. But if, for example, there was a period of, you know, a year where there was no effort to find a tenant to continue the use of the property, then you would be correct, Ed, that there would have been an abandonment.
Well, except that it says here, number 2, if abandonment occurs involuntarily, the owner may request that the discontinuance be continued beyond the 6-month period, provided the application for extension is made with the initial 6-month period. So application suggests to me something in writing, but
It's more of a case law thing, you know, and I'm more than happy again to go into executive session as well on that if you want to talk about that. But it's you know, it's a close call, but it's also within the board's discretion.
okay.
Okay.
Bill, can we take a 2-minute break? I just have to go deal with something real quick.
Sure. So Kelly, do you want to go on a 2-minute break on the video?
Sure. I am going to, oh, no, Jeff is already on it. And
Okay.
do we all want to mute and close our videos and go into an executive session, or we're just taking a break for
I'm just asking for it
personal
for me.
reasons?
I'm asking for me. I just have something I have to deal with downstairs.
Okay.
Sure.
That's fine. Okay.
Sure. We're live.
Okay. Thank you. So we have reconvened the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of April 29, 2021. As we go to the public comment, we have received, Bill, I think you identified and are attached as exhibits, 7 pieces of correspondence from residents who have expressed support in one case and opposition in the others. Do you have any need to read those now, or do you want to just go right to public comment?
I would go to public comment at this point. So I have those identified,
Yeah.
but I don't actually have the physical emails available yet. I can pull them up momentarily. So I would go to public comment first.
Okay. All right. So why don't we're going to go ahead and open this up for public comment. I can't tell how many people from the public are here, but I understand there are multiple people, and presumably everyone wants to get a chance to speak. So I would ask everyone to, you know, keep your comments as short as you can to give everyone a fair opportunity to express their own. If someone has shared their comments and you essentially want to concur with all those comments as already expressed, that's perfectly fine. You're welcome to do that. It's rather than reiterate all the comments, this is, you know, there is a stenographer who's taking all of this testimony down, so it will be in the record. It doesn't need to be in the record twice. So if you're making essentially a statement to simply concur with someone else, you can certainly offer that as your testimony. Each person who will come in will be sworn in. So I'll start with those people who may have received certified mail and who wish to speak. I guess, Kelly, I can't see hands as to who received certified mail, but you might be able to. But do you want to feel free to bring people in or let them join, hopefully one at a time?
We have 10 attendees.
Okay.
And I know that one of those people is just calling in and may not have the ability to raise their hand with the Zoom function. So I'm going to let her speak first and then kind of move on from there. Okay.
Okay, so,
Okay.
yep,
All right, I believe this is Lynn Elliott, but she can correct me if I'm wrong. Lynn, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here, and I thought I would go last because I think I live farthest from this property. But if you'd like me to go first, I will do what I can, and I will swear to you that I am raising my right hand
Miss
in my
Elliott,
TV, and I will repeat
Miss
after
Elliott.
you. Yes.
Miss Elliott, before you start, because you do have to be sworn in, we have had the opportunity over the years to have you at hearings before the board, and I can state with certainty that I do recognize your voice and that I can identify you as Lynn Elliott. So I am not concerned that we cannot see you on video in terms of being sworn in.
Okay.
okay. So Arlene, would you swear in Miss Elliott, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and Lynn, I think many of us know you, but for the record, do you want to state your name and address?
Sure. My name is Lynn Elliott. I'm at 704 Polo Road.
Okay.
And
Yeah, no, go ahead. We're eager to hear what you have to say.
Okay. I am opposed to this particular use, and I'm happy to see that the parking lot has been a little bit adjusted because I'm astonished that someone would try to put in a restaurant with fewer parking spaces than required at a space like this. But I have to say, I agree with Mr. Bacardi about the non-conforming use. And in fact, if there was never even a for rent sign that I ever saw, I pass this property all the time. And it doesn't seem to me that if one of the reasons to regulate non-conforming uses is to prevent further investment in an enterprise that is not actually suited to its location, that intensifying this property from a retail business to a restaurant business is actually encouraging greater investment in something that isn't appropriate for this particular spot. I think the traffic of all the cars going in and out is going to be far greater than what Mr. Viola, wonderful as he sounds, is actually anticipating accurately. And I have to say, as part of the application, it seems to me that number 3 says applications involving a non-residential use shall be accompanied by a traffic study prepared by a professional traffic expert. And I don't know, particularly with a use that is now going to be not just retail, but a sit-down restaurant with takeout capabilities also, that is certainly going to change the traffic patterns for this particular corner. And I think a traffic study for everybody to understand what the impact is likely to be on this neighborhood is very important. I also think with this parking lot configuration and the idea that you're going to have employees parking on these other properties that Ms. Hall owns, that's great. She owns these properties, but those are residential properties, and now they're going to be used as essentially parking lots. They're not adding to the life of the community as residences, which is what the purpose of a residential property is. And the parking lot that's in there currently is only approximately 3 feet from the back fence line of the residential property behind it. And if this restaurant were going to be put in a by right spot, it would be in a C2 commercial location and would require a 15-foot minimum buffer between it and the rear residential property. And I think it's very important not to let these kinds of commercial interests overtake our residential neighborhood. We have a community that is constantly being encroached upon by commercial interests. And with the residential community going gangbusters right now, I don't see why she couldn't develop this with those 3 properties that she could put together as a residential kind of development. Possibly she looked into this long ago, since she's owned it for 8 years and hasn't done anything with it yet. But I want to remind you, there is right next adjacent to a gas station on Montgomery Avenue and Woodside Avenue in Ardmore, a townhouse development that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are directly adjacent, probably 10 feet from an Exxon station. So there are things that can be overcome with this. And in terms of the hardship, I wasn't clear exactly what the hardship was that she was claiming. There certainly are other retail uses around there. And it doesn't seem to me that she had a specific hardship. She just didn't seem to be able to get whatever the deal was that she wanted. But if that's the case, that's almost like a self-inflicted hardship, and there's no relief allowed for a self-inflicted hardship. So I really think that it would behoove everybody to have a traffic study done before any decision is made on this. And it would be wonderful to have an appropriate use at this corner rather than having nothing. But I don't think this restaurant, once the variance would be granted, this restaurant would go on forever with a future owner, and you don't know what they would do with that. So I would be in opposition to granting the variance to have this turned into a restaurant facility. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
All right, and Ms. Elliott, before you leave, let me just ask the members if anyone has any questions for you. Ed, do you have any questions for Ms. Elliott?
No question. Thank you.
All right, Jessica,
No questions.
Jesse?
Yes, Ms. Elliott, could you state what you feel would be the highest and best use of this?
I think consistent with its R6 zoning, I think you could develop this into residential property. Right now, certainly in this neighborhood, houses like the one Ms. Hall owns at 7-Eleven that is a total eyesore, tear that down and build a townhouse? Absolutely. The fact that it's on a busy road, yeah, it's going to be less pricey, but boy, is this a desirable neighborhood from a residential standpoint. And I don't see the gas station in this kind of a market being the detriment that possibly it was a few years ago.
And would you say, so if your first preference would be for housing, would you would not find a restaurant that you could walk to in your neighborhood to be desirable?
I think there are ways in which food activities are very low key. Certainly a small market where you're getting the kinds of cold cuts that the Haverford market was. It's a very different thing than a sit-down restaurant and a takeout restaurant where the hours are till maybe it's 9 o'clock. Maybe you're there cleaning till later. If you have a parking lot with patrons who are coming, you need to put up lights. Those lights impact the residents nearby. And yes, she owns those two properties, but they still are residential. People should be living there. And the more you have these kinds of commercial intrusions with the dumpster, with the smell of rotting food in a dumpster, even if this restaurant owner is the best you could ever have, that just comes with the territory. And speaking as someone who lives next door to a commercial building that started off as one thing and then was allowed to become something completely different, it just happens. Once you grant this kind of a variance, it can be to a totally wonderful person, a great owner, a great restaurant operator, and then 3 years down the road, it gets sold to someone else, and suddenly there are all kinds of changes, and it's something no one ever anticipated.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. I have no other questions.
All right, thank you, and nor do I. And thank you, Ms. Elliott, for your comments. I appreciate them. Kelly, do you want to tee up at least someone who may have had certified mail, since that's the standard we try to follow?
Actually, yeah, let me pull out the file. And bear with me. Certified. Let's see. Ms. Hall, over. And. Actually, I do not believe that other than the applicant, we have anyone else here that has certified mail, unless there are a few odd names in the list, if somebody wants to raise their hand. Otherwise, no, I think we only have one hand raised otherwise. So if I could just move on to.
Well, it looks like,
I think, well, Bill, you are correct, but given just the way that we are now proceeding in cases, I don't think we're bound to go certified
Okay.
regular any
Sure.
residents. So I think
okay.
we can really just take it, in whatever is easiest for Kelly to facilitate.
Okay, so Kelly, go ahead and invite someone else up to the stand.
Sure. The first person that had their hand raised actually is on regular mail, so I will allow them. I believe that they also did provide email comment as well, so they are part of that list.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? I have not seen any of the emails that were mentioned before. Has anybody else on the board seen these?
No, sir.
Okay, just to be clear, that so the public knows, we have not seen or had a chance to read before this meeting any of the public comments.
They were provided to the solicitor to make sure that
Okay.
they were appropriate for to be entered in the record.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Is this Ms. Marion?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Hi,
thank
Ms.
you.
Marion.
And I wasn't
Okay.
sure if I was under the heading of certified mail. I know I was one of the people that got an actual letter about this, so I wasn't sure.
That's fine, right, that's fine. So, Ms. Marion, we're gonna need to swear you in. If you could, if you have the ability to turn your video on, that would be preferable, but if you can't, we understand.
Well, this doesn't seem to be giving me the option of it. It just told me,
Okay.
it just gave me the option of unmuting.
Okay, so Arlene, would you swear Ms. Marion in, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, so Ms. Marion, for the record, would you state your full name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Marilia Marion, Marilia. Last name is Marien, and I'm at 713 Buck Lane.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Marion, what would you like to share with the board?
So I am one of the people that sent an email in, and I didn't want to repeat my comments if you all got a chance to read them. So I won't, unless it would be helpful, since it doesn't sound like any of you have read them, the folks on the board and making the decision. But if you'll read my comments, before you make your decision, then
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to underscore then two things that, just because coming up from tonight, I wondered if I could also ask a question of Ms. Kirk or Mr. Malone. Is that allowed to understand the situation?
Right, so Bill, right, the public comment is really directed to the board, not to the applicant?
Uh-huh.
Correct. So you would not ask the applicant a question. However,
Oh, no.
depending on what the question is, Kelly or I may be in a position to address the question from the resident.
Okay, all right. So one of my concerns is if this variance is granted, it sounds like maybe we're down to one variance, but if this variance is granted to Ms. Hall and she sells the property or wants to partner with another person, most importantly though, if she sells the property, does that variance remain, and that somebody else could bring in then another type of restaurant because the variance has been granted and now it's a restaurant use?
That's a question that I'm going to sound like a lawyer because I am one, is impossible to answer because I can't answer that because it would depend on how, if the board was to approve a variance, what, if any, conditions they would place on it in terms of the use and what they were granting. In some instances, there are conditions placed upon the grant of a variance, and perhaps there are restrictions placed upon it in terms of, and I don't want to go too far afield, but because the applicant has indicated there would be no alcohol use or sales there, the board might suggest, and again, I'm not suggesting the board is going to approve, not approve, so don't take this the wrong way. But if the board was to approve and say that there would be no alcohol sales, that would run with the variance into the future. But what I can say to you is that if a variance is granted, whether it be for a fence, whether it be for a setback, whether it be for a use, the variance runs with the property, not the applicant.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much. And so I just wanted to make three then comments. And as I said already in my my correspondence to you all, one of my main concerns is that it'll bring increased foot and vehicle traffic, and that hasn't changed. In fact, I'm a little more concerned. I've felt a little bit better about hearing about the parking spots, but that actually has been counterbalanced by the reality of takeout. And my experience, just, everyday life experience is that with takeout, there's this constant coming in and going out of traffic. That's already a very tight turn from Haverford onto Buck Lane. Even if you made it a one-way street, let's say people come into that parking lot from Buck Lane. I think we will just increase the problems we have with traffic already. In the last 2 years, we've had 2 cars totaled 3 cars totaled on this street just in the last 2 years with my neighbors across the street. One neighbor has had her car totaled twice, and that's from people just kind of coming through the neighborhood. And I actually think this will increase the problem we have for that. I think we still will bump into the problem that the neighbors will be competing with visitors, particularly takeout people who don't want to bother going into the parking lot to hop out, pick up the takeout, and then be easily on their way. The folks that live on that end of Buck Lane have to park on the street. So you are impacting their everyday lives and making it just a little bit more difficult. And I think that the concern about noise pollution and light pollution in general, and pollution in general in the area with a restaurant, even of this type, although it sounds actually really quite lovely. But I'm also thinking down the road, and even now, you're going to need security lights. The neighbors are already bothered by the security lights from the gas station and the nail salon across the street. And you'll need security lights for your restaurant and for the parking lot. And if it's on 24/7, that'll be, a problem, particularly in the evening. So my concerns about the impact to the neighbors, but to the neighborhood in general, because the parking problem won't just be in Buck Lane, but particularly to the neighbors closest to the property remains. And then lastly, there are a lot of residents actually that are very concerned about this issue. I got my notice a week ago, Thursday, and Monday, 4 days later, was the deadline to send in comment. And so I would respectfully request that a continuance of this proceeding, if possible, to give more residents the opportunity to weigh in. You've got 7 responses, and that's just, that's quite impressive. And you can see the concern with the neighbors all around, not just on Buck Lane. And so I would respectfully request that that you consider that, to give more people an opportunity to weigh in and express their concerns, either by coming to another hearing or by sending it in to you via email or mail. And so thanks very much for listening to my comments and for your work on behalf of all your residents.
All right, thank you, Ms. Marion. Before I hand it over, let me just ask you a question on the topic of parking on the lower end of Buck Lane there. We have seen, obviously there's no parking on Haverford Road. And directly in front of the building, at the very end of Buck Lane here, you're close to a traffic light, which would constrain on-street parking anyway, which on Buck Lane, I believe, is only on one side. Do the residents who live on Buck Lane who need to park on the street, and I understand that, you just mentioned that, do you have permit parking as residents on the street currently, or is it just catch as catch can?
Catch as catch can. There's no permit parking.
Okay. Okay, Ed, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Jesse?
Yes, Miss Marion, the accidents you referred to, were those cars that were parked and hit by a car turning onto Buck Lane?
They were parked on Buck Lane, and one car was driving through and another car had just made the turn from Haverford Ave onto Buck Lane.
So the cars that were damaged were what you believe to be residents' cars that were parked on the street?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay, Jess?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't either, but why don't we keep going? Kelly, you want to invite our next resident?
All right, so. Okay. Hello? Is there this person didn't use their real name. Zach Mack, are you? What?
No, it's Star and Zach Simpson.
I'm sorry.
It's Star and Zach Simpson.
Okay, Star and, okay. Is this, all right, so Ms. Simpson, can you, we'd like to swear you in so you can testify, is that all right?
That is all right.
Okay, Arlene, will you do the honors?
Swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, so.
Spell your first name, is it S-T-A-R?
2 R's, S-T-A-R-R.
And could you spell your last name and provide your address, please?
Simpson, S-I-M-P-S-O-N. And we have 2 houses, 703 Buck Lane and 630 Haydock.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Simpson. What would you like to share with the board?
Almost all of the houses on Buck Lane that have a driveway, they're one-way driveways. You pull in and you back out. When there is a lot of traffic on Buck Lane, backing out is a really difficult thing to do. And I think a line of takeout people waiting to go into the parking lot because of traffic would make it almost impossible for people to get out of their driveways. And I know that it's already, on busy traffic times, it can be a neat trick to get your car out of your driveway, and this could only make it worse. I also share Marilla's concern. Our house is next door to hers about the light pollution, noise pollution, heavy traffic. But I have to admit, Mr. Viola's restaurant sounds wonderful, and I do hope he finds a location and opens it. We would love to go to it.
Okay, thank you. Is that all that you'd like to share?
Yes, I think those are our major concerns.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's see, Jessica, do you have any questions for Ms. Simpson?
My only question is, you noted 2 addresses or houses that you own. Do you live in either of those, or are they rented?
Neither of them are rented. We live in one, and the other we use as a guest house. Our our mother, Zach's mother recently died, but before she lived in Quadrangle, and we had a lot of family come and visit. We used it to put up our out-of-town guests.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jesse, any questions for Ms. Simpson?
No, no questions. Thank you.
All right, Ed?
No question, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Simpson, I just wanted to ask you one question. For the benefit of the board, you talked about the concern that many residents face some difficulties and delays at times of the day and backing out of their driveway, and that obviously, if the extent traffic were queuing to get into this restaurant, it would exacerbate that. Can you tell us what time of day do you or have you experienced particular delays in getting in and out of your driveway, whether it's backing out or not?
Yeah, rush hour is usually the worst time.
Okay.
You know,
And that
otherwise-
is that morning and evening rush hour? Is that morning particularly because of the proximity to schools? Is evening worse than mornings? Can you elaborate a little bit, please?
No, it's just when the traffic volume is heavy, it's hard to back out because of the narrow nature of Buck Lane. You pretty much need no traffic going both ways to do it comfortably.
Mhm. Okay, so in your experience, whether it's morning rush hour or evening rush hour, it's about the same problem?
Yes, it's about the same.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Kelly, you want to invite our next resident?
Sure can. Whoop. Actually, oh, no, that was, just put that hand down. Oh. Is there anyone else in the attendees audience that would like to speak up? There we go. Okay. Oh, and then it disappeared. Okay. No.
And Kelly, we can't see those until you bring them in, I guess.
Actually, if you go to the participants list, you are able to view it. But there were a few hands. They went up and then they disappeared. I'm not sure if that was a. There we go. All right, let's try this one.
Okay, so the next one I see is Mr. Brower. Can you hear us?
He is currently muted.
Okay,
Is that unmuted now for you?
yep, now we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Mia Brower. My husband accidentally signed in instead of for me. I was cooking dinner.
Okay, well, we're happy to have you here, Ms.
live
Brower.
Yeah. I
So-
live at 123 County
Well,
Line
hold
Road.
on. Okay, hold on. We're gonna need to swear you in first.
Yes,
Okay,
my right
Go ahead.
arm is raised.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I thank you. Yes.
okay, so Ms. Brower, could you give your full name and address for the record?
Yes, Euphemia Brower. I'm known as Mia, the last three letters, Mia Brower.
Could you
I
spell your
live
first
at
name?
123. Yes,
Spell your
Uh,
first name, please.
okay. I live at 123 County Line Road. I understand about the traffic. I can't even get out of my own house on a wider street than Buck Lane at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the same thing at 8 o'clock in the morning. I think the idea for this quasi restaurant cafe is charming, but it's the wrong place at the wrong time. Townhouses seem like the best idea. I built 5 townhouses in Radnor in a similar site. I would be happy to give Dana the contact information for my architect. I think you could put up a barrier of bushes, put in parking and whatever else you need, and have income producing properties if you choose to rent them, or sell them in this real estate market at quite a profit. But a restaurant with very active traffic is it's the wrong place. Find a place that's a little more commercial, that lets people come in and park. If I go have a cup of coffee with a friend and then we decide to split a sandwich and then we keep chatting about whatever is going on, you're there an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We've come in 2 cars. Right away, that makes a problem. So that's all I have to say. I think Miss Elliott said it best when she asked for a traffic report for the area.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Miss Elliott said it best when,
She asked for a traffic survey.
can you hear?
Yeah, Ms. Brower, can you get a little closer to your mic here? It's very difficult to hear you now.
Yeah, hold on a sec. It should be, I believe it's unmuted.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I said, I think that the traffic survey should have been one of the first things that would be done for this property, not one of the last ones coming in afterwards. You have barely adequate traffic, adequate parking for something this size. Parking, everybody runs around in a car. We don't pick each other up, especially because of COVID. We have been distancing. As COVID ends, we are going to be hitting public spaces much more often, coming in our own cars. So for every seat that you see in there, you probably will have a car in your parking lot. I don't think that's viable at that corner. Coming around from making left turns from that corner is sometimes, even with the traffic lights, is sometimes a life or death situation, because you come around and someone has parked a little closer to the middle to come through on his turn, and it's almost impossible to go down the first part of the street or go up the hill.
Okay. Anything else, Mrs. Brower, you'd like to share?
No, I think I've said everything I have to say. If you want my architect, contact me. I'm at miamagic@aol.com.
Okay.
He did a wonderful job, and he also built was the architect on the project on Montgomery Avenue next to the gas station. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Dana. Let's see if I.
Okay. So, Ms. Brower, let me just, for the record, you said you live at 123 County Line Road. Approximately how far are you from the applicant's property here?
Less than half a mile.
Okay. And are you between, Lancaster and Haverford Roads on County Line?
I'm between Old Railroad and Old Lancaster.
Got it. Okay.
I back up to the polo field.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, could I get the spelling of your first name, please?
Sure. EUPHEMIA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jessica, any questions for Ms. Brower?
No questions.
Jesse?
No questions, thank you.
All right. Ed, any questions for Ms. Brower?
No questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Brower, very much. Kelly, let's keep going down our attendee list.
All right, there we go. Oh. People keep raising their hand and disabling it. I'm not sure if they're just gun shy or what, or maybe having technical issues. If anyone does want to add a public comment, if they could raise their hand on the list. I'm not seeing any additional raised hands. If you want to.
Doreen Sarr did comment that she wants to speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of the ones that kept coming up and going away. So I'm going to assume technical issues, and we'll hear it from her either way.
Okay, I think, Ms. Sarr, I think we can probably hear you now, if you can hear us.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Ms. Sarr, I think you're a veteran of some of these meetings, so I think you'll know we need to swear you in. Arlene, if you would swear in Ms. Sarr, that would be appreciated.
May I make one point before we do that? I'm also accompanied by Clarissa Dillon, who lives on Buck Lane. She's sharing my Zoom. So I just want to know that she would like to speak after I do.
Fair enough.
Or before, if you prefer before?
No, after.
Oh, after, okay. Okay, let me swear.
Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, and Ms. Sarr, for the record, could you spell your full name and provide your address?
Yes, it's Doreen, D-O-R-E-E-N, first name. Last name, Sarr. S is in Sam, A is in Apple, A is in Apple, R is in Roger. Sarr. 748 Rugby Road.
Okay, Ms. Sarr, what would you like to share with us?
Well, I'd like to share with you that although the applicants are flexible and I'm sure they are good, well-intended, in fact, that this is totally contrary to the Haverford Township Municipal Code. In which says in 182-803, change in use. A non-conforming use shall not be changed to any other use other than a conforming use. This is a residential neighborhood. It is zoned residential. In fact, it cannot, and she does not meet any of the things with the variance. I'm on the Haverford Civic Association. We haven't had time to get a meeting to get the tenor of the neighborhood, but people to whom I've spoken in general, and I know that Marilla and I have spoken, have not had a chance to really get the full depth of opposition to this project, because it really impacts an already a neighborhood that is already on the edge in terms of its residential activity. And I concur with all of that Lynn Elliott has said. The traffic, the residential character, the inability to control what's going to happen once this variance is taken, the smells in the neighborhood, the rats in the neighborhood, the exhaust, and even long-term leases can be broken. The proposal variance doesn't permit a restaurant in an R6. And in fact, if you look at 802-404, when a use by right, I'm sorry, 802-C1, you need a 1.5 acre lot to put in a restaurant. I believe this does not conform to that. Further, this does not conform to all of the requirements of a variance. So generally, the only kinds of variances that would be used in this point were variances that are physical. In fact, the change in a use variance, in fact, is generally forbidden there. So that is completely inappropriate. And even if you have a physical variance, those physical variances are in the case of an unusual hardship. There is no hardship or exceptional circumstances in this case. In fact, what you have, it seems to be a series of mismanagements and of the property. When the applicant bought the property, she knew what the status of the property was. And in fact, she said she did not do her own due diligence on it. It is not appropriate to make the township and the residents of the township bear the brunt of her lack of due diligence in this. And in fact, we are not talking about the entire building, we're talking about the first flat of a building. That first flat could easily be turned into a residential space. One of the things that we've seen, and Ms. Hall has admitted to it, is that there has been mismanagement, and those residences which were occupied contiguous to the property are no longer occupied and are unsuitable for use. Is this kind of, when she offers this very evidence for this, it does not seem to me to be the evidence of a person to whom we should extend a variance to further change the neighborhood. So there's no unnecessary hardship that a variance requires. So variances, it's just not appropriate in a code. And it's nice that the proposal is awful. And the policy of our code is expressed at 182-8026. A non-conforming use shall not be changed. Okay, so this is not changed to another use. This is another use. And in fact, in 182-404, which lists the kinds of properties that can be put in there when used by right, it distinguishes the food store as in category D from restaurants in category E. So this is a clear distinction that's made in the code itself, and that the variance, if authorized this is 802-1004, that the variance if authorized will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or the district in which the property is located, or substantially or impermanently impair the appropriate use or development or adjacent property, nor be detrimental to the public welfare. So what you see here is you are putting the development of the property values of the adjacent neighbors at risk. And it's all very nice that this will be a wonderful restaurant. And as the others have said, we wish them well, but this is not the appropriate place for this. And it is not the appropriate place because the code specifically says that this is illegal. I don't think there's anything else I have to say. I'm sorry I haven't gone, if I've gone over my time. I'd like to turn the rest of this over to Clarissa Dillon, who's sitting next to me. And think about the fact that this parking, it's not just parking and traffic, children walk on the street. The neighbors, you really have people who are being put at risk. We haven't had an accident there yet, but all of this, I can't drive down Buck Lane in the middle of the day without playing Dodge a car. So this is so inappropriate and so problematic as to be, anyway, let me turn you over to Clarissa Dillon, who will speak.
Well, Ms. Saar, before you do that, we have to let the board members have an opportunity to ask you questions. I want to make sure you're done with your testimony before we move on though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ed, do you have any questions for Ms. Saar?
No questions.
All right, Jesse?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Jessica?
No questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Saar. Okay, so while we have the line hot, I guess, if you want to hand over the microphone or whatever, Arlene, will you swear in? Let's get the name, I guess, and swear her in.
Clarissa Dillon, C-L-A-R-I-S-S-A, Dillon, D-I-L-L-O-N.
Okay.
Ma'am, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, and thank you, Ms. Dillon. And could you give us your address, please?
I live at 768 Buck Lane. That's at the corner of Buck and Railroad.
Okay. What would you like to share with the board tonight?
I bought the house in 1972. I have enjoyed the neighborhood as a true neighborhood. I'm a single parent. My son is grown, but it was a great relief to have neighbors keeping an eye out for my son's activities while I was teaching in Radnor. When Mr. McCarthy menaced our neighborhood, I took out an easement on my property at my expense to protect it from people like him. And it was an expense, but I value the neighborhood. I really, really do. And I was sitting in my car recently and a commuter whipped by and took off my rear view mirror, and it cost me over $600 to replace it because of course the person didn't stop. If we have more traffic at the corner with people eager to pick up food because they're hungry, they're going to be even worse than people on their way to work. So I am very concerned about the quality of the neighborhood. I plan to live there until I die, and I would like it to remain residential. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Ed, any questions for Ms. Dillon?
No questions.
All right, Jessica
No questions.
and Jesse.
No questions, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Dillon. We appreciate your testimony.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. Do we have any other digital hands up, Kelly?
Not that I can see unless there are other people that are having.
Well, we do see, I mean, we see a few people that I don't think we've heard from who I think are in. I see Christopher Morse, Gail Fairley Summerad, Joanna Levitt, KNK, and Wendy McGarvey. I don't think we've heard from you, but I know you're here. If anyone would like to speak, please, by all means, signal either by posting a note, I guess, or raising your hand.
Yeah, if the hand raising isn't working or you're having some technical difficulties with that, I'm looking at the chat now, so feel free to jump in there and I can add you in. Otherwise, I think that may be it for public comment. If you want to give it a few minutes just to make sure, we can certainly.
Yeah, we'll wait. Why don't we wait a minute just to make sure if someone's trying to signal that we can see them.
And again, Bill, while we do that, why don't you let me read the emails from the people who have not testified tonight?
Yeah, please
and
do.
that'll give the other individuals time to perhaps get involved. So,
Okay.
So the first one is from Tom East, E-A-S-T. He lives at 734 Millbrook, Millbrook Lane, Haverford, PA 19041. His email reads as follows. As a home owner 2 blocks from the site of the old Haverford Market, I support approval of this variance as the highest and best use of the property, period. My only suggestion is that the drive-through pickup service be required in addition to in-house dining, period. For years, this site sold raw meat and groceries, plus deli sandwiches, hot dogs, and heated soup, period. It is reasonable to allow cooking on the premises, which would make it a restaurant. That's the end of his email. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move through 2 different computers. So that's his. The next is from Shannon with 2 N's, Bierman, B-E-A-R-M-A-N, 626 Haydock, Haydock Lane. And Arlene, let me know if I'm going too fast. I am writing to delay the appeal of the variance of the 701 Haverford Road, period. A non-conforming retail use to change to a restaurant, which is not permitted in the R6 zoning district, period. The owner is also seeking a second variant, and it's variance, but it is spelled variant with a T at the end, to allow fewer than the required 10 off-street parking spaces, period. This will bring increased foot and vehicle to an already dangerous intersection and busy street, period. It is already risky for pedestrians to cross Haverford Ave and a tight corner from Buck to Haverford Road, period. Residents along Buck Lane and the connecting streets have years been concerned about the problems with people speeding and not stopping at stop signs on Buck Lane, comma, that will add to the dangerous problem, period. Increased vehicle traffic is especially dangerous for children, period. Buck Lane is home to 2 schools, comma, a house of worship, comma, playing fields, comma, school bus stops, comma, and a large public park, period. Allowing the variances would make life difficult for the children of the neighbors and dangerous for the children as well as their parents, period. The residents on Buck Lane rely on street parking, period. They will have to compete with visitors to the restaurant, period. The variance already admits that there is not enough street parking with the restaurant, period. The restaurant will bring increased noise, comma, light, comma, and environmental pollution, period. It can destroy the character of the character and very possibly it can destroy the character of the character and very possibly decrease the property of residents and decrease the property values of residents coping with the pandemic, period. I strongly urge you to deny the request of variance, period. Thank you for the time you have spent. Clarissa Dillon already testified. The next one is from Joshua Dupuis, D-U-P-U-I-S. It's actually from Nadia, N-A-D-I-A, and Josh Dupuis. We do not have an address for them on their email. Oh, actually, in the body of it, there is. Dana B. Hall, owner of 701 Haverford Road, Haverford, PA. I won't read the folio number, who seeks a variance, and I won't read the details of the variance. States that she lives at 762 Buck Lane with my husband and 2 small kids. We strongly oppose approval of this variance to allow for a restaurant at the bottom of our street, period. 2 simple reasons for our opposition. This is a family neighborhood that already struggles with heavy and speeding traffic that poses a danger to our kids, comma, detracts from walkability of the neighborhood, which has many negative impacts and creates noise pollution, period. A restaurant would make the traffic issue worse, period. We do not have off-street parking and already struggle to find a spot to park, period. A restaurant will make the parking issue worse, period. Please do not allow for this zoning variance. Marilia already testified. Chris Morse. Did Chris Morse testify?
No.
Okay. So Chris Morse, Chris and Molly Morse, 710 Buck Lane. We are writing in opposition to the zoning change proposed for 701 Buck Lane, which obviously would be the incorrect address, but we know what it's about. My wife, daughter, and I have lived at 710 Buck Lane since 2017, period. We love the neighborhood and community, and we're committed to maintaining a safe and family-friendly environment, period. Unfortunately, the proposed zoning change would have the following negative effects. 1, increased dangerous traffic. Buck Lane is already a very busy and narrow street, as it is used as a cut through between Haverford and Lancaster, period. Every day I see cars speed through the stop sign outside my house where my daughter plays, period. There have been multiple attempts to limit this traffic, parentheses, additional stop signs, comma, flashing lights on stop signs, end parentheses, that were broadly supported by our community as well as our late Commissioner Andy Lewis, period. But the problem remains, and the zoning change will only make it worse, period. 2, limited parking for residents, period. Most of the homes on Buck Lane have no driveways and rely on street parking, which is already limited, period. Commercial activity on our road will make this much worse, period. 3, changing our neighborhood, period. Our neighborhood and street have a residential character with close-knit ties, period. The original zoning exists for a reason, period, and adding this commercial property will negatively impact our community's environment and quality of life. Ms. Sarr testified, and that's it.
All right.
I did
Kelly?
have, so I did have one more, I believe.
I figured you might.
Anybody else did want to join, but that this should be our last. And
Okay.
Hi, hi, my name is Dr. Gail Fraley-Semerad. I know I have to be sworn in.
Yep. So thank you, Dr. Farley-Semerad. So Arlene, will you swear in Doctor?
Yes, and please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And if you could please spell your name and.
Sure. It's Gail, G-A-I-L. Last name is hyphenated, F as in Frank, A-R-A-L-L-Y, hyphen, S as in Sam, E-M-E-R-A-D.
And
79 Penn Street.
709 Penn?
879.
879. Okay.
Correct. So I just want to introduce myself. I'm actually the president of the Broomford Civic Association. And I want to thank you for allowing many of the members that are on our board that spoke tonight so eloquently. And just want to let you know that, the Broomford Civic Association, we are extremely dedicated to our community and that what the community cares about, we want to make sure that they are informed. When we got, and I know, someone mentioned about it being a late notice, didn't have a lot of turnaround. We immediately sent out to our membership list, the information for the public notice and things like that. And that is what we continue to do. We also posted information up on our website. It is something that, I can only talk for myself. I am the president, but I'm not, my following statements are personal. I understand what all, I was sat here patiently listening to everyone, and I can understand that everyone is concerned about the traffic and they're concerned about the parking. Living on Penn Street, we have a lot of college students, right? So parking also is a challenge, but we're fortunate enough to have off-street parking. So I know the members in Lower Buck Lane do not have that. So, I can understand that, I think, was it Doreen who said she plays Dodge a car type of thing? Like, how many of us haven't had to pull all the way over to the side just to get through Buck Lane? So I can understand the concern for the traffic. I too, wish Chef Viola well. And I do question whether, as for a personal point of view, I just can't imagine, like when I first heard it, I thought, oh no. It sounds like a charming place, don't get me wrong, but I just think that, it definitely is going to, and everything that I heard from my community that got back to Broomford Civic Association, they have some very strong feelings about this, as you heard today. So I just want to thank you for allowing us to participate. and that, we will be actively participating in all the zoning committee meetings that reference anything having to do within the Broomford Civic Association. Thank you.
Okay, can I just ask you, because I thought maybe you and I had talked at the same time, just to again nail down your street address?
Sure. 879 Penn Street.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any questions, Jesse?
Yes. Do you think, and speaking, I know you can only speak for yourself, but if the entrance to the proposed use was only off Haverford Road, do you think that that would be more appealing and to the residents? And I'm saying that the side would be just for the apartment use. Do you think that would change anybody's point of view on this?
Honestly, probably not, because you really can't control people's actions. Even, you can put up one-way signs, you can put up do not enter signs. There's different ways that you can go about directing the traffic, but you can't control it. You can do your best. The other thing is just think about, I'm coming out of the store, I'm coming out of this lovely little restaurant, I had lunch, and I want to make a left onto Haverford Avenue. I haven't heard anybody say no left turns on Haverford Avenue, right? That would be impossible. I can just imagine someone's going to pull out halfway through the street, block everybody. It's going to be a nightmare. Would it be an only right turn? No one has even talked about that. And I think that is where the idea about having a traffic study done, they're going to come in and they're going to say, to make this work, this is what you need to do. But it's still not going to stop people from, parking on Buck Lane and quote unquote taking up, a lot of different spots that maybe the neighbors needed to park and because they didn't have off-street parking. So I think that I understand what you're saying as a solution, but I don't think it's extremely viable. I think it'd be hard to, especially without a traffic study, I think it would be very hard to enforce.
Thank you for your answer. And I want to make it clear, it's definitely not a suggestion, just wanted to get your opinion on that. So certainly not trying to design or make suggestions for the applicants, but I have no other questions. Thank you.
I understand.
Good. Jessica, any questions?
No questions.
Ed, any questions?
No questions.
All right, I only had one, Ms. Fairley-Simrod. I was wondering, you have focused on both traffic and parking, as many people have. And we've already heard testimony that that parking is a critical problem on Buck, yet there is no permit parking. Why, in your view, either personally as a resident of the neighborhood or on behalf of the Civic Association, do you not seek permit parking to preserve the available parking spots for the residents who live there?
Well, I don't know all the details in regard to permanent parking. And we have another case in front of us as far as Broomford goes, people interested in cutting down on student parking on their street. But permit parking, from what I understand, and I could be, just glancing this because I don't have the details in front of me, but what I've heard is that you have to get a very high percentage of the neighbors saying, yes, I definitely want this. I know, for instance, they have permit parking on Dayton Road, which is adjacent to Penn Street. But then there comes the problem with when you have visitors or you have overnight guests and things like that. You're going to have to purchase extra permits for if you have any family members come and visit so that they don't get ticketed. So it's an added expense for the neighbors, right off the bat. It's a yearly expense, I believe. And then you're going to have to buy extra permits just in case you have friends or relatives stop by. And you have to get the majority of the neighbors to agree with it and sign the petition and say, yes, we want to go forward with this. We do have what we call street captains in the Broomford Civic Association. And a lot of times with any, information will be brought to us and we will we'll look into it. find out, what the details are, if they're talking about permit parking. We have a governance and zoning committee with Broomford Civic Association, and the members, attend all your meetings, and they're in touch and very knowledgeable about zoning within Haverford Township. And if someone comes to us and says, this is a problem, we're going to give them solutions. And many times permit parking is an option. That is one of the solutions. Well, if you're complaining about the parking, this is a consideration. And I find that the feedback that I've gotten so far is that it's very difficult to have all the neighbors agree to do that. And they don't want the added expense. They don't feel that they should have to pay for parking on their own street or have to have an extra permit for a friend or a relative. And I can understand that.
Okay, well, thank you. So Kelly, obviously we've heard some testimony. There may be some reasons that the board members would like to return to Ms. Hall and Mr. Viola if he's still available. Are there anyone else that you think is an attendee that hasn't had a chance?
As far as I can tell, we have everybody that, or we've, spoken to everyone who has seemed like they wanted to participate. I will check the chat one more time just to be sure that there weren't people who I missed otherwise, but no, it looks like we're good.
All right. Okay, sounds good. All right. Ms. Hall, I hope you can hear me. I know you're on mute right now, but so I presume you and Mr. Viola had a chance to hear some of the comments. And obviously there's some themes that run through some of these comments. Let me just ask you, and I think some of our questions as the board were heading this way, which is how many people are coming and going, putting aside the parking alone, but just the traffic volume. Have you considered, and would you be amenable to getting a traffic consultant to come in, and based on the feedback from Mr. Viola as to the capacity of seating as well as the anticipated walk-in traffic and takeout traffic, I guess, to try to calculate the traffic burden in that at that intersection and on Buck Lane?
I would like to be as helpful as possible. My instinct, I would like to, I haven't considered a traffic study. My instinct is that that's a neighborhood consideration, and we should focus on what the additional traffic would be, and at what time the traffic would make the most impact. But I think Mr. Viola said 8 or 9 people an hour for takeout. And so I don't think that would mean lined up the street. So I would love to defend the volume. And I think he was expecting a lot of foot traffic, especially from the college. We have a terrible traffic problem on Buck Lane. I don't think that the Haverford market contributed to that considerably in the past. And I don't think that this business would. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to satisfy. It would be awful to have a hard time pulling out of your driveway. There's never any parking on Buck Lane. So I'm not going to be able to satisfy the very legitimate concerns and complaints that the people have indicated tonight. But I don't think that this business changes it any differently than the Haverford market did.
Right, and of course, our job is to try to assess impacts on the community and amongst a number of issues here.
Of course.
And given that the traffic situation on Buck Lane is what it is currently, I think we're sensitive to those issues. But zoning, our job is to try to mitigate, exacerbating the problem. And so, I would guess that we would be willing to leave the record open and give you time, if you had an inclination, to seek a traffic study to simply be able to identify the likely traffic volumes coming in and coming out. And potentially, if there were ever a moment in a rush hour, let's say an evening rush hour, since you probably wouldn't be open in the morning, about whether that would create a queuing issue or would likely create a queuing issue, which, fair point, it's a busy intersection. And also whether the turning angles coming out of your driveway onto Haverford Road should be a right turn lane only, or right turn only, I'm sorry. Would you be willing to do that? I mean, I think we'd probably be willing to leave the record open and allow you to come back and simply present the results of the study. We could leave it open for that limited purpose.
I would have to discuss that with Mr. Viola. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, I would like to provide as much information as possible, but I really think this is a high risk ask here, because I think we all know what it's going to say, and I specifically don't think that I can prove that this would be any different from a market, the existing zoning permission.
Right. Okay. Let's see, Jesse, did you have any additional questions for Ms. Hall or Mr. Viola?
Bill, before you go there, and I just listened to what Ms. Hall said, and we have the fortune of having a hearing again next Thursday on the 6th. Perhaps it might make sense to continue the matter until that date to give 1 week opportunity for Ms. Hall and Mr. Viola to discuss whether they would want to do that traffic study. Pardon me. And then we could also give them additional time after they make that decision on May 6th to get that done. Just a suggestion.
I appreciate that. I just wonder, I'm not a lawyer. I just wonder if agreeing to that just sets me up for, I don't know. I'll let you all decide that, but I'm very happy to come back to you before your next meeting.
So Bill, right. So Bill, do you want to, explain that we don't typically have meetings on back-to-back Thursdays. So we do have a very short window here. And if you would like the opportunity to confer with Mr. Viola as to whether you want to do that, we can leave it open and simply to give you the opportunity to come back and say, we're not going to submit, or we'd like to submit. And at that point, we could close the record then, or if you wanted to submit, we could leave it open and give you the flexibility to deliver a report, right?
This
Bill?
is exactly what I'm saying, because of the fact that this is a rare occasion where we have a 1 week window, instead of putting Ms. Hall on the spot right now to answer your questions, it gives the opportunity for a week to answer yes or no, whether they decide they want to do that. And then we could go from there. So it's not, and I kind of misheard the word, that Ms. Hall used, but it's really just trying to provide an ample opportunity so that they can make an educated decision as to what they would prefer to do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ed, go.
We did have a request from the one of the residents that testified about keeping the record open for public comment. If we kept the record open, would we allow additional comments from the Civic Association, the residents in that neighborhood?
Well, let me ask Bill. I mean, if we were keeping the record open simply to afford the applicant and Mr. Viola to come back and tell us whether they would like to submit a traffic study or not, which is a fairly simple question. It's very factual. I don't know that we would do that, but if they did choose to submit a traffic study at that time, I would presume we would allow public questions on the traffic study.
Yes, that'd be correct. And I think that's a fair piece of information to provide to the applicant, to Mr. Viola, to say that if the record was kept open and if they decided to provide a traffic study, then it would afford the opportunity for any residents to comment on that. If, on the other hand, next Thursday they said, we simply know we're happy with the record's where it is, and we just want it closed, you don't necessarily have to allow additional testimony at that time. It's not just an open-ended question. Now, being a lawyer again, you also, as a board, have the opportunity to say there has been a request by one or more of the protestants to keep the record open for additional evidence. You could also grant that. I mean, you have all of those options. So you could close the record tonight. You could allow the opportunity for the applicant to say whether or not they want to provide the traffic information or traffic study and have that week to decide and keep it open only for that limited purpose. You could keep it open for the purpose as requested by the protestants. So you have each of those three choices, and that's all of them are legal. So it's really kind of your determination to feel as to how you want to go.
All right, well, let's go back and see if anyone, Ed or Jesse or Jessica, if you have other questions based on what we've all just heard for Ms. Hall and Mr. Viola. Ed, any additional questions? And then I think we can figure out what we want to do on the record here.
No additional questions.
Okay. Jesse, anything else?
Yeah, besides the question of the traffic study, would you be amenable to designating certain parking spots for takeout only?
I think that's a great idea.
So I'll take that as a yes. Okay.
Yes.
And would the suggestion of using separate driveways for residents versus the restaurant, would that be a deal breaker for you?
Nope.
Would you be
The
open?
residents, to be, I know this doesn't have anything to do with the law or the regs, but the residents don't use the apartments has one car between.
Well, that's the current one.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Future.
Well, I would, if I made the apartments empty, it still wouldn't help me. I would still need 4 spots. So I'm just saying that I'm willing to work with everything and rent spots across the street. It's curious to me that it's so protected and residential on the one side of the street, and the other side of the street is so deeply commercial. So if you want us to move part of our commercialness across the street, I think that's a great idea. It's just a little odd that the street is so split, especially with the Midas on our side. Maybe they could rent us some spots.
And the only other thing, and I don't know if this would be not really a question, maybe a suggestion, is I would think you might want to have a civil engineer also have a look at this, because I think some of the parking spaces I would question, just to make sure that somebody who specializes in parking lot design takes a look at, especially the angled parking. It looked, I just want to make sure that somebody is looking at that to make sure that the count is actually constructible and doable, and that we have the proper turning radius. That somebody would be able to attest to that too. I think that would give me personally more comfort in being able to make a decision on this case if the parking lot was studied by a professional engineer.
Yes,
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay. Jessica, any other questions?
I have no other questions.
Okay. I had one other question for Mr. Viola based on some of the points that were made. We heard a couple of people raise questions about lighting in the parking lot. And, often or sometimes we'll see in projects a lighting study, which gets pretty, detailed. But what is your expectation on lighting after dark, right? Whether while you're still open and then after you close at whatever, 9:15 or whatever it is?
My expectations would be as soon as the sun started to go down, our lights would go on automatically. And they would stay on till an hour after we closed, and then it would go off automatically. So they would probably be off before 11 every night, and probably earlier than that.
And just to add to that, the lighting was 24/7 or always during the dark hours until the bulb blew out recently. So we've always had lighting in that parking lot overnight.
Okay. And Ms. Hall, as the property owner, would you be okay if the lighting was set as a timer to go off at, an hour after the close of business?
Yes. Living next to two schools that have their lights on all night long, I'm very interested in trying to conserve light pollution. I am a neighbor, so I'm very keenly aware of all these issues.
Yep, understood. Okay, well, unless, I am leaning towards leaving this open for next week to give the applicant and Mr. Viola a chance to confer and decide whether they would like to do a traffic study. This does not, set you up, Ms. Hall, or whatever the term you had, right? This is your choice if you want to, but give it some thought. You obviously heard a lot of concerns about traffic, and it's understandable, and it might help alleviate concerns. It might not. I have no like preconceived notion about what it would do, other than it might bring a little bit more clarity to the board members who have to evaluate this.
Yes, and
But
I'm happy
your
to.
choice.
I'm happy to try and satisfy your questions. My concern is being sort of branded with the traffic problem, that there's no chance a traffic study is not going to show that we don't have a traffic problem. I feel like the testimony, or not testimony, the burden for me is to prove that this would be more traffic than if it were the market.
I conceptually agree with you, right? Traffic is what it is now. And I think the analysis is whether to grant a variance to convert it from a market currently to a restaurant. There would be some impact. What is the nature of that impact?
Yes,
And what's the timing of the, I think evening rush hour might represent the maximum impact. What would that look like? Would there be queuing? Or to Jesse's issue, are there adequate turning radiuses in your parking lot for the spots that you plan to stripe? All those issues, I think, could be allayed or answered, or at least informed in some way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Can I just add one thing? There was a lot of discussion about how I'm missing a lot of great residential development opportunities, and I don't know if that bears on your discussion or your decision, excuse me. But I think if you are concerned about that issue, I think we need to have that conversation, because I've done a lot of research on this and spoken with 7 or 8 developers. This is not, and all the property options that were mentioned were in a different county. This is different. And every time I get a developer in, they say, yeah, I thought that was going to work, and it's not.
Fair enough. I don't think alternative uses in and of themselves are determinative of the decision we're going to have to make here.
Yeah, I feel really badly that the neighbors feel like I haven't tried to do something that they want to do. I'm up for that. I would love for someone to join me and develop this.
Right. Okay. So I would ask Ed and Bill legally, Jessica, Jesse, are you okay that we leave this open for a week and give the applicant a week to decide, and we can leave it open? I think that if we do, we should leave it open and allow the residents, if they want to submit more statements or speak, that we can give them that. I'm sure we'll have plenty of things on the agenda anyway, but I'd like, if we're going to leave it open, I think it would be fair to leave it open to the applicant and and the residents, at least for a week. And then Ms. Hall, you'll be in the position to decide whether you want us to leave it open longer for a traffic study or not.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I concur with that, Bill.
Okay. Jessica, are you okay with that approach?
Yes, I am.
All right. Ed?
Muted.
Ed, you're mute. You're muted again.
Here we go, one more time. I don't
There you
usually like the idea of offering to let the applicant produce more testimony to make us feel more likely to approve the project if they didn't want to offer it to begin with. However, since you're going to let the residents also do it, then I would vote in favor of it.
Okay. All right. Well, then why don't we leave the record open until next week? You know, if the residents want to submit emails or whatever, we can read them in. And Ms. Hall will try to get you in, and because I think it's a fairly short part for you to come in and decide if you want to do a traffic study and tell us what you would prefer to do. You know, I suspect we'll get a few more people who've weighed in on a pro or con, but you know, that's the process.
Yeah, so it would be open to pro too.
Yeah, it would be.
We have a lot of neighbors that we have to hear from, so that might give me an opportunity to balance things out a little bit.
And if I could say one thing before we close up.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Vince Viola.
Yeah.
I've been sitting here trying to give you guys a comparison of what our restaurant would be like. And the only thing I can compare it to is, I don't know if you guys remember, if you guys and ladies remember Pepper's Cafe down on Haverford Road, which was across from the paint store, I think. They would kind of have the same, obviously it's not in a residential area, but they are on Haverford Road. And they had a couple counter spaces inside, maybe 4 or 5. But then they also had porch dining outside also. And as many times as I've been in there, they were friends of mine. I've never seen a problem with traffic going in and out, whether turning left and right on Haverford Road. Like I said, that's the only thing I can compare it to. There's really not that many restaurants on Haverford Road, either on that end or up at the other end. Like I said, it's not residential. You don't have to worry about anyone's car getting hit. But it was a great spot for people to enter and exit. And that was during rush hour also on Haverford Road. So just a comparison.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
So there's some chats that are going on here, and I'm not sure what the takeaway is. Kelly, was there an issue about whether we formally close the record now, but allow, it sounded like there was a question about allowing further testimony after we close the record? I wasn't sure what that was.
No, there were a few follow-up, somebody that had follow-up questions, I think maybe additional questions, but I think maybe waiting, since seem to not be closing the record this evening, maybe waiting until the next meeting and wrapping that up.
Yeah, Bill, my two things. My computer crashed, so I apologize. It's not out of battery, but something happened to it, so I got back on my phone. My recommendation at this point, and the chat is not official part of the record, is at this point, I just think there's too many open items that are going on. So my recommendation to this board as your solicitor, keep the record open to next Thursday and come back and we'll address the open issues. Hopefully the applicant will have some answers and we can, if need be, call back some of the people that have indicated through chat that they have questions. We're not going to read the chat questions into the record. They're not part of the record. They can't be part of the record. You know, you need actual testimony, you need opportunity to cross-examine and things of that nature. So my recommendation at this point is that the case at this point be continued until next Thursday, May 6th, and we reconvene at that point.
Bill, there is one question, generally of procedure that I do want to just address from the chat. The applicant, or I'm sorry, the people who did make public comment this evening through through Zoom, but did have written emails sent that weren't read, will they be distributed to the board?
Yes, so I was able to locate them, and there will be, all of them will be sent to the board tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Those were identified at the beginning of the hearing, and it was just, again, it's just, okay, we live in a different COVID world now, Zoom world, whatever you want to call it. And until we were probably 3/4 of the way through the hearing, I could not access them. We can access them now and get them out to the board so that they can all review them as well.
Okay. So, Ms. Hall, just to reiterate, as you are contemplating whether to engage a traffic consultant to do a study, I think we heard 4 topics that were related to traffic. You know, one was the parking striping in your lot and whether it works, it meets parking requirements, if there's adequate turning radiuses and so forth, as well as, you know, if you were to designate a couple spots for the residents only or 2 spots for takeout or whatever, how might that look? One was obviously the ingress and egress, the number of trips, as they call it, that people would be taking, and knowing that you plan to be open 6 days a week, closing either on Sunday or Monday, they typically would go out and take some samples as a representative sampling of different times of the day. The whether in the worst case, particularly like maybe evening rush hour, whether they would create a queuing issue anywhere in the intersection or on Buck Lane, thereby clogging it, since it's essentially, you know, often feels like it's a 1-lane road when you're trying to go up or down it. And then the other one that I know someone mentioned was whether it's even viable to consider someone could turn left on Haverford Road coming out of your Haverford Road entrance or exit, which is a legitimate question given its proximity to the traffic light. So I'm not sure they could get across the intersection to turn left or to turn onto it, but I don't know, I'm not a traffic consultant. So those are the issues I think that I heard. So keep those in mind as you contemplate whether you want to do it. At that, I think we are not going to adjourn quite yet because I think we have minutes to do, but Mr. Viola and Ms. Hall, I think we're done for tonight and we'll leave it open.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your time and your service. This is yeoman's work. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Bill, I think minutes, I guess, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Or Ed? Yep.
Yep.
That would be Ed.
Yes,
Yeah, sorry.
We had minutes distributed to us for 1/7/21, 2/18/21, 3/4/21, 3/18/21, 4/1/21. I'd like to move they be approved unless someone has comments.
Second.
Any comments, Jesse?
Oh, sorry, no comments.
Jessica, any comments on you?
Comments.
Okay, they're fine with me. I think
I'll second the
we're,
motion.
thank you. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so Bill, your minutes are approved.
All right, sounds good. And just as we talked about, and I know we don't have to be on the record for this part, with the decisions, I think we came to a consensus as to how we'll handle that in terms of getting those all executed during these times.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and adjourn the meeting and we can conclude the meeting. Thanks, everyone, and we can stick on and figure out about signatures for a second, okay?
Sounds good.
Kelly, you want to just give us the word when the video's off?
Will do.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Right.